What's going on, and welcome to the next section of Persuasion Hacks. And today we're going to talk about communication. And so I'm going to give you the single most important thing that you need to know about communication, and especially when it pertains to selling. But before I do, I'm going to tell you a quick story. So last year when I was coaching football, we had a really good team, and we were one of the final two teams playing in our league playoffs. And so we got to coach the All-Star game, right? And when I'm coaching the All-Star game, I'm preparing, putting together the defense and everything like that. And I remember thinking, I'm like, man, all these kids are going to be, super smart. They're all all-stars, right? So I'm going to just jump right into football lingo. And so I wanted the kids to, I didn't want to worry about the basic stuff that they should already know because they're all stars, right? So I kind of jump right into it. So the kids come over to the school, we go into the portable, we're sitting there in the meeting, and I start explaining the defense. I'm going over all the stuff, and I'm drawing stuff up on the board, and I'm going into it, and then I turn around and look, and these kids, the look on their face was like, I don't even know what you're talking about, man, right? Because I was diving into the football jargon, right? And what I had to do is, even though these guys were all-stars, even though they were great football players, I had to come back to basics. I had to dumb it down and simplify it for them, right? And so why do I tell you that story? Well, it's very simple. A confused mind never buys. A confused mind never buys. And so what happens is, whatever you're an expert in, right? I have a client who's a nutritionist, and he's an expert in nutrition, and he starts throwing out all these big, complicated words, and the endocrine system, and this and that, and hyper whatever, and he loses people because of that, right? Because as soon as you say something that someone doesn't understand, they pause. Their brain stops paying attention to anything after that, and you lose them. You lose them for the rest of that time. And so what can you do in order to overcome that, right? Because you want to tell people the amazing capabilities of what it is that you do, but you can't confuse them. You can't give their minds more than they can handle, right? So it's very simple. We all went to school. If you grew up in the U.S., you had to go to school, right? And so I want you to imagine that everyone that you're talking to, and I'm going to tell you why this works. Everyone that you're talking to speaks at a fifth grade level, right? Fifth grade level, and no higher than a fifth grade level. And so when you're explaining things, you don't have to explain it like they're stupid, right? You don't have to be like, well, this is this, marketing is kind of selling stuff, right? You don't have to be that way. But what you do is you do use the words. You don't have to explain it like, well, actually, we're looking at cost per lead and cost per sale, cost per click, and we want to see the actual ROI of our PPC campaign and right? You're losing people, and so what you do is you use two things. Number one, you want to use a fifth grader's language. You want to speak at a fifth grade language. And the other thing you want to do is you want to use kind of like statements. And what kind of like statement is, it's basically when you're telling people what something is kind of like. So if I wanted to tell you about PPC, right? PPC advertising. Well, instead of just me throwing out, hey, so we're going to do some PPC advertising, and then just keep continuing on my presentation, I would say PPC advertising, it's kind of like only getting charged for advertising if someone's interested, right? Because we're only getting charged if someone clicks. And then I can move on to the next thing, and the person can stay with me, right? But as soon as I say something they don't understand, I lose them. And so with this lesson, the biggest thing that you need to understand is a confused mind never buys. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh man, but I want to sound smart, right? I can't speak like a fifth grader, people aren't going to respect me. People aren't going to take what I'm saying serious. Well, here's the thing that I'll tell you. They did a study with the last presidential election, and they went and saw what grade level each person was speaking at. The person who won, Donald Trump, was speaking at a third grade reading level. to the entire United States, right? Third grade reading level. Some of the other people that were running against them were at eighth grade levels. I think Ben Carson, I think is his name, was at an eighth grade reading level. Someone else was at a 12th grade reading level. Hillary's at like a 7th grade reading level, and how they speak to people. The guy who won, regardless of how you feel about him or what you think about him, spoke to the American citizens at a 3rd grade level and won the presidency of the United States as the biggest underdog in probably history. How did he do it? Very simple. He spoke to people in simple terms they could understand. He didn't throw out big complicated stuff. He did stupid stuff like, "You're a bad man. That's a very bad man," right? That's like a 3rd grader, but this is the president of the U.S. So if you have any doubts about how to use simple language, don't, because it works. And if you try to go the other way, you're going to confuse people, and then you'll wonder why people aren't going along with what you're trying to persuade them to do. And so with that lesson, I just wanted to hit it home with that. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.